I think that has been one of the biggest challenges of our, jobs this year is that when we have to evaluate a settlement offer, right? So let's say we get a cash offer for a case. It's a percentage of the purchase price back to the consumer. But as these purchase prices are climbing, it's not quite matching up with the amounts or percentages that we would see back in, we'll say, 2020. Welcome back to season 3 of Lemon Law Unpeeled, the Lemon Law podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Courtney.
And I'm Steven.
And today we're going to do a 2025 wrap-up. We're going to talk about the top 5 most common vehicles that we saw this year, the types of issues they've had, the different challenges the consumers are facing, and the challenges that we've been facing internally, at least in dealing with different manufacturers and different experiences that they have had in 2025 that have made lemon law claims either better or worse to deal with. So first, we're going to start off with our 2025 worst vehicles that we saw this year. So number 1 on the list is the Jeep Grand Cherokee. That has been a forerunner, I would have to say, for a while now, right? Like we've seen the Jeep Grand Cherokee for many years at this point. And what would you guys say is the most common defect that you see in this car that consumers are complaining about?
So, Emma, I would say one thing that I've seen consistently is that it has a hard time shifting. Oftentimes, the transmission is banging into gear. It's not shifting properly. It's a real issue when clients are trying to use this terrain-type vehicle to go over and do their type of activities they like to do on the weekends. So, oftentimes, I would say transmission is a major one where it's shifting improperly.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing. Transmission issues, shifting issues, also a lot of electrical, infotainment, Bluetooth type issues, everything connecting that infotainment system. We see that all the time as well.
Yeah, infotainment, I think, across the board is a huge problem. And I guess problem is not the right word. It's just the more bells and whistles that we put into vehicles, it's the more things that can go wrong with them. And then you have Android phones, you have iPhones, you have the Google cell phone, and all these different types of technology trying to merge together and trying to work together, we're finding is a really big issue. CarPlay is another big one that we see, which unfortunately, as we've talked about before, that's not a factory defect. Unfortunately, that's an issue with Apple. So there's not really much lemon law wise we can do about that. But that's been really challenging as well, is we've seen that dealerships will often blame the person's cell phone as opposed to any actual internal issues that the vehicle might be experiencing at that time.
Yeah, and it's hard because a lot of times people are buying the vehicle for these bells and whistles. They want the infotainment, they want the Bluetooth, they want the hands-free calling and be able to stream their music through the car speakers. But when it comes to lemon law, I always tell people if the issue is something that didn't exist 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the vehicle is still driving, braking, steering. It's typically not something we're going to be able to get the vehicle bought back for. We might be able to get you some money damages, but it's very difficult to get a vehicle bought back for issues that aren't affecting the vehicle's ability to actually drive from point A to point B, which is what the car is really there for. So it can be tough with these bells and whistles because people are paying for these issues or for these extras, and they want them to work appropriately.
I think another issue also with all these new cool features that you're getting installed with the technology is the manufacturers are so eager to install them that they don't really take the time to work out the bugs before they input them into the vehicle. So oftentimes we'll hear, oh, it requires a software update, but we don't have that update yet. That's great that there's one coming, but the client wants the issue addressed now, and I don't blame them. If I was paying that much money for these new features with the technology, I would want them right now. I don't want to have to wait until you guys figure it out on your end.
Yeah, that's a really common issue that we've been seeing too, is no fix available, right? We're aware of this problem. We're not able to fix it yet. And how to tackle dealing with that has been really tricky because, again, like we said, it's issue dependent. How severe is the problem? When does the fix become available, right? We have to prove that a certain amount of time later, the fix is still not there, which makes it really tricky. It kind of leads us into our next number 2 big car that we see, the Chevy Silverado, which I think also encompasses all of these problems that we just talked about. Transmission, engine, and electrical is just a common thread. The Silverado, again, like the Grand Cherokee, is a truck that we've been seeing for years at this point. on this, top 5 list, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it does tend to be the American-made vehicles. It tends to be the Chryslers, the GMs that do have the most problems, or at least that we're seeing the most. And perhaps, optimistically speaking, it's because more people buy those vehicles, and so there's just more of them on the road. But it does tend to be those vehicles that we're seeing the most. And yeah, again, transmission, infotainment. Also, with the hybrids, we're seeing a lot of issues with the electrical charging system, especially with GM. That's been a real hot one this year, where people can't use the battery component of the hybrid vehicle, which is a huge reason why they're purchasing this vehicle. But it's difficult, again, to get it bought back because they can use it just using gas, which can kind of be unfair to a consumer because they're purchasing it to be able to use the electrical component, but they're not able to do so. The dealership is telling them, oh, we have a fix coming, or we're going to be able to figure something out, but there's just no fix available right now.
I would say for Chevrolet, the Silverado is their biggest selling vehicle. So a lot of people want the pickup truck. Pickup trucks are now back in popular demand, contrary to how they were in early 2000s, where everyone's shifting to environmental vehicles. Trucks are coming back with a major turn. So everyone kind of wants these trucks. You see them in the commercials on Sunday football. Very popular. It looks great. What a cool looking truck. However, the manufacturers are trying to rush to keep up with demand. So a lot of times they're not going to be putting these together as properly as you would think because they're rushing to get them onto the market.
Yeah, that's what I always think is the main issue, because the GMC Sierra, which you alluded to, is number 3 on the list. So the Silverado and the Sierra, like you said, because my husband does construction, right? So when it comes to him going out to pick out a truck, he's looking at the Dodge Ram, the GMC Sierra, or a Ford, F-250. Those are the most common trucks that they use. Any of the others, like the Toyota, the Honda, they're trucks, but as my husband calls them, they're baby trucks. They're not the trucks that you're actually going to be used for hauling and working and doing those types of heavy duty jobs. So I agree with you, Stephen, in that I do think it's a law of numbers. I think there's just so many of them on the road that obviously we're going to see more of those than a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz, which is a very high price item. Not everybody has access to them. So we're just not going to see as many claims. The flip side is, though, GMC in general, I would say, is a pretty good manufacturer to deal with. They do try. But yes, I agree. It can be incredibly frustrating because especially with these trucks being used for business purposes or work purposes, it really can hurt the American consumer when these trucks aren't working properly. Then that leads us to number 4 on our list, which we also talked about, which is the Dodge Ram, right? Same sort of rule, I think, that we're seeing with the Sierra and the Silverado. They're used a lot. They're used for work purposes. But what would you guys say, again, for the Dodge Ram is what you see most often, at least what are consumers complaining about the most when it comes to those trucks?
Off the top of my head, I think, again, it's transmission issues, banging into gear, hesitation, lag, not shifting properly. I think that's mostly what I've been seeing with the Rams.
I would say one other one I've seen more frequently lately is that there's a strong vibration where the suspension or the axle is causing a really violent shake in the pickup truck in these Dodge Rams. Whether or not it's because the axle or because the suspension has issues with the bolts, I have seen that more frequently lately about vibrations, or what is also known as a death wobble for some people.
Yeah, we've seen that a bunch. And then again, Bluetooth. I think the Bluetooth connectivity issues just across the board. That's a huge one that I think no manufacturer can say that they don't have, right? We've seen it with pretty much everybody. And wrapping up for number 5 on our list is the Jeep Wrangler. We pull this information from the cases that we have the most of as a law firm. And the Wrangler, I feel, has always been pretty steady on that list. Again, I would say if I had to guess, again, it would be the transmission, Bluetooth, and possibly, like Stephen, you pointed out, I think the death wobble is frequent in these types of vehicles too.
I think I see the death wobble in this and also water leaks. A lot of times when a client calls in with a water leak, it ends up being a Wrangler, whether it's because they have the soft top or this specific type of door that's allowing water in. It shouldn't let as much water in as it does. A lot of times the dealership will say, well, this is normal, but there's no way it's normal to have a puddle and be able to splash the water with your feet when you get into the vehicle. So that's another big one that I've been seeing with the Wrangler.
And I think the problem with the Jeep Wrangler is it's just such a popular car, though. It's been popular forever. It appeals to a wide range of consumers, from high schoolers all the way to my dad once had one, not too long ago. And A lot of them are diehard fans. They say, I've always had a Jeep Wrangler. I don't know why this is happening now. Again, a game of numbers. FCA is trying to push out as many Jeep Wranglers as possible. I think everyone in the manufacturing industry has been a little scarred from the pandemic, where there was an inventory shortage nationwide. Everyone's heard it. Unfortunately, a lot of people had this experience it. Manufacturers are now trying to make up for that shortage and saying, well, we're just going to crank out as many as possible. And Jeep Wrangler is just a popular vehicle that just is being built quickly, and there's a lot of issues going on with them.
Well, vehicle prices too. I think that has been one of the biggest challenges of our, jobs this year, is that when we have to evaluate a settlement offer, right? So let's say we get a cash offer for a case. It's a percentage of the purchase price back to the consumer. But as these purchase prices are climbing, it's not quite matching up with the amounts or percentages that we would see back in, we'll say, 2020, right? Or I guess pre-COVID, where you'd be looking at, a $40,000 car. It has Bluetooth issues. Yeah, about 10% of that back makes sense. Now you're looking at, like we talked about, the Sierras and the Silverados are going for like 60, 70,000, sometimes more than that now. So 7,000 for a Bluetooth issue, that is types of numbers that usually we don't quite see for that type of just, plain electrical issue, but that would be 10% back. So it does make it really tricky for our job now too, to balance the scales, in that the market demand has gone up so high that prices have gone up, but the actual defects and the amount that you're going to get back, they're just not quite meshing with each other, which is making it really difficult to get the consumers a number that makes sense, right, for what they paid.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. A lot of times people will say, well, that number's peanuts to me, or it's almost a slap in the face to me. But it can be hard because, like you said, what we're able to recover is a percentage of the purchase price. And historically, that's what we've been able to recover. And the more expensive the vehicle, well, a lot of times that percentage does go down.
I think a lot of manufacturers, too, are saying, well, no, this is the same issue that you've had before. Where it kind of ends up during these discussions. But we're saying, well, no, then the car price should not be this high if it's the same issues. The valuation on their side is a little skewed as well.
And it's tough too, right? Because they put, at least my understanding of it is, again, I've never worked at a car dealership or anything like that, but my understanding is there's the MSRP, right? The manufacturer's suggested retail price. But that's sort of just a recommended number, is my understanding. The dealerships, what they actually sell the vehicles for, couldn't be different from that. And the market drives that, right? Supply and demand. And at least, just post-COVID or during COVID, these vehicles were selling $5,000, $10,000 above MSRP, just because that's where the market was driving it. But whether that then shifts the lemon law figures and lemon law numbers, they don't quite equate with each other. And that just makes it really, really difficult too. We've also seen a lot of changes in certain lemon laws, right? Colorado's lemon law has changed, which we even have disagreements now with certain manufacturers over what these changes mean and what they ultimately look like for the consumer. We have a case going where we're just having a disagreement over leases under Colorado lemon law and how that applies. So those changes have been really challenging too, along with these changes in figures that we're seeing, because the prices are just really, really high. Another main issue that I think that we're seeing at a consumer level is when a client says, hey, I'm having this problem again, and we recommend that they return to the dealership to enhance their case. They're like, well, I'm trying, but there's no rentals. And a lack of rental availability has been a huge problem since COVID, basically, right? And that issue, unfortunately, is still happening with them not being able to get an appointment because there's no rentals available. But as you two know, there's not really much that we can do about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely a huge problem. People need a rental in order to be able to bring their vehicle to the dealership to perform their daily functions, to go to work. But when a dealership's telling you there's no rental availability, people just aren't bringing the vehicle to the dealership. And unfortunately, we can't recover for the fact that you're having a problem. We can recover for the fact that you're having a problem that has been subject to repair an unreasonable amount of time or an unreasonable number of times, or the vehicle is still sitting at the dealership. So you saying, having this problem with my vehicle, but I can't get it back because there's no rental. Unfortunately, we can't work with that. We need you to be able to get it back. So one of the things we've seen people do is pay out of pocket for a rental or a loaner and then try to seek to get that money back. Occasionally, we're able to help with that. Under the law, we can't. But sometimes with certain manufacturers, we are able to do it. Other times our clients are able to get that money back on their own through the dealership or through the manufacturer, but it is always risky. I have a lot of clients who end up putting thousands of dollars out of their pocket with the hope that they're going to get that money back. And so it can it can complicate things when they've got that kind of money on the line and we don't know what we're going to be able to get back and what we're not.
On top of the financial challenges, it's important, though, to continue to go back to the dealership so we can get documentation. It's kind of a catch-22 because you have no loaner or no vehicle provided to you, but we need those repair invoices to help establish that there's an ongoing continuous issue with your vehicle. So it's important to just try not to get deterred or frustrated in that situation and just know that each time you take the vehicle in for a repair, it is just adding on to your case and establishing, hey, they have not properly fixed this vehicle as well.
Right. And it makes it seem almost like it's not that big of a deal if a rental is what's holding you back from bringing your car in. Honestly, like if we had to go in front of a judge or a jury and the client is saying this problem is back, I don't feel safe in this car, I didn't get what I paid for, and they're very frustrated. And then the question is presented to them, well, why haven't you been back to the dealer? Oh, well, because I can't get a rental car. It leads the judge or jury to kind of scratch their heads a little and be like, well, if you're that frustrated, find a way. Figure out a way to get it there. So I understand both sides of that, right? I can understand really needing your vehicle, especially if you have a family, you have kids, you have a job, you have places you need to go. But you can see how we have a tough time arguing, oh, it's this really big issue when the client is just dealing with it, right? And able to deal with it on a daily basis, as opposed to figuring out some alternative to getting it into the dealership for repair. But on the other side of that, when clients do ultimately get it in for repair and then the dealership tells them it's normal or they can't confirm the problem, that can be a huge issue too. I mean, Stephen, you can talk about the repair order we just sent over to Chrysler today for a case that the repair order is really ambiguous. I mean, it says they kind of confirmed it, but then it also says it's normal. And this client, as we both know, is super frustrated. She doesn't feel safe in her car. So even once you get it to the dealer, you can still run into these issues that can really stall your lemon law process without the dealership saying, hey, there is a problem here.
It's absolutely frustrating, those type of situations like what we currently have going on, because our client is adamant that this is being told to her, that there is an issue, that this defect needs to be replaced. On the other side, the manufacturer's like, no, it seems like it's acting normal to us. And now we have this ambiguous repair invoice that hints at it and is not quite 100% saying yes, absolutely, or no, absolutely not. And now we need to try push and keep making the point, well, no, it is an issue. It was felt by the service technician, but it's frustrating when the dealership is trying to play a little cagey with how they're wording these invoices.
Yeah, it basically says that we were able to feel the issue, but another dealership has looked at this car and said it's normal, so we're going to go with it's normal, which is super frustrating. So it's like, you drive these cars all the time. You are mechanics. If you feel the problem, there's an issue. Just relying and kicking it back to another dealer's diagnosis to me is lazy, for lack of a better term. And like you said, being cagey. So that can be really, really frustrating too, because a difference between a repair order that says there's no problem found and a repair order that says, confirm the issue, performed a repair, is huge. They can't duplicate, can't replicate. Those hold very little weight when we're trying to litigate or press these cases forward, because that's what the manufacturer is going to say. There's nothing wrong here, so why are we responsible?
Yeah, we really need the dealership to be able to verify the issue and document that they're verifying it. And to the extent that you're having the problem where one dealership is relying upon another dealership not finding an issue, I try to give the advice that when you call that second or third dealership to make an appointment, don't say that you've already been to another dealership. Sometimes people will call up and they'll say, well, I already went to this other dealership and they're telling me it's normal and I really don't think so. And that just puts that idea in that new dealership's head. Or sometimes they won't even want to give you an appointment because they don't even want to get involved. So I always say, call up, make it sound like it's the first time you're bringing the vehicle anywhere for the issue issue. You don't have to give them details. Just say, this is the problem I'm experiencing. I'd like to bring my vehicle in to have it looked at. Don't even mention the other dealership. If they find out about it on their own, there's not so much we can do about that. But don't even bring it up because they might not even know about it. And then they're going to be looking at it with a fresh set of eyes rather than going in with blinders as to the fact that another dealership may have found that it was normal.
Yeah, I always tell clients, well, I don't believe them to be a problem. If the dealership gets any wind that this person might be a problem or they think they might be a headache, they're going to run for the hills. They don't want to deal with it. So you have to be as neutral as possible when expressing, your history with the vehicle and kind of leave it up to them to find. But it's not a perfect system. These cases can be really frustrating and really challenging. We have some that are kind of not a slam, I don't want to say a slam dunk because there's no true case like that, but they're very obvious, right? Confirmed issue multiple times, dealers acknowledging it, and off we go. And then there's others like this that require more legwork and more time to invest in them to do our best to push them forward. But we always have to look at these cases through an objective lens, right? We have to see both sides of it when we're evaluating going to litigation or whether to just resolve it for cash. But either way, kind of these challenges between the high purchase prices, the lack of duplication, the normal conditions can make it really, really tricky. Another huge issue that we as a firm have been running into, at least in terms of the other side, right, the counsel or the claims representatives that we have to deal with, is we're noticing that there's quite a bit of turnover, right? Claims representatives that we had, that we work with forever are gone now. And either the caseload is shifting to the people that are currently there and, obviously more work, less people, or we've got new people coming in that are training. They're taking longer to evaluate these cases. And that has made our job really tricky too, because clients are always saying to us, well, what can you do? Can't you push them? Can't you force them to give you an answer? And it's like, no, we can't. We can continue to follow up, but nobody can force anybody to do anything, even in litigation, right? And that's made our job really tricky too.
Yeah, it's really tough. And when that happens, we can always file suit. And that's what I end up telling clients is, yeah, we can go ahead and push the case into suit. But if we do that, we're extending the timeline by a year to a year and a half, or even 2 years in some states. So a lot of times it makes more sense to give them a few more weeks or even a couple more months on the pre-litigation track rather than jumping to filing a lawsuit. But it can be really hard for our clients just to sit and wait because we're kind of at their mercy as to whether or not they're going to make an offer. And Emma, like you were saying, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people have been leaving or been let go. Though I do have to say on the flip side, when it does go to new people, sometimes we're getting answers quicker. Sometimes that person might have been let go because they were slow or overworked. And now there's new people there and we've been getting answers quicker in some cases. So that's a plus. A downside would be that sometimes cases fall through the cracks on their end and we keep following up with them and they don't realize over there, what person in our department is supposed to be handling this case because it did belong to this person and now this person left. Should it go to that person? And so that can slow things down.
I've just recently been going through that on about several cases where we're right at a critical point in having the vehicle repurchased by the manufacturer and the one person who was handling them is gone. So a supervisor took over and trying to get a hold of that supervisor to get a response has required repeated emails daily just because clients are like, we're so close. What's the hang up? And it's hard to explain that while we are ready on our side, we have everything ready. Just because they changed one person or one person left on their side, now it's adding a couple weeks onto what we were about to finish on your behalf. And it's frustrating to us, just as it's frustrating to you. We want to get this resolved for you. We want to get success for you. But when they have that little change, believe it or not, we are hammering them on the other side to get a response and get this resolved.
Well, and we have a similar experience too with the third parties that facilitate these surrenders, right? So basically what happens is for some manufacturers, right? Some handle everything in-house, but others, we get the repurchase offer from the manufacturer, we sign the settlement documents, we agree on the amounts, and then they kick it to a third party. And the third party is the one that actually facilitates the surrender, issues the checks, gets all the paperwork signed, because there's a lot of documentation that they need to sign to brand a vehicle a lemon, to change title over, and all of that. So this third party who, I can't say what's going on over there. We don't have as deep of a connection or relationship with them as we do with these other manufacturers, but they are being so slow. The manufacturer will tell us, oh, well, we sent everything over to them. Let's say it's October 8th now. We sent everything over September 2nd, and we still haven't heard anything. So what do we have to do? We have to call that third party and basically start screaming. I have to ask for a supervisor, which Courtney and I just experienced that last week. We had a client that had the repurchase offer, I want to say in July, right? And now it's October 8th, and we're still waiting for a surrender date. And she's like, I'm paying insurance that I'm not getting back on this car. Every day that I drive it, I worry I'm going to get into an accident or something's going to happen and then I'm going to lose this claim, or because once the vehicle's totaled, you can't repurchase it. And I'm just sitting here waiting and I'm just bleeding money because I believe she went out and bought a second car knowing this one would be gone. And it's just been a very heavy financial burden. So eventually, I had to call that third party, start yelling and poking. And finally, that same day, they sent us a date for surrender, or sent us the email to set up the date for surrender. But it's like, why? How you got it done in a day. So what is going on over there that it's taking you over a month to get this sorted? It's all, very frustrating and very confusing.
Yeah, it's infuriating. It's like there's a pile of documents sitting on someone's desk and they get to them when they get to them, or when we get angry enough to call them and start yelling at them. And it's very frustrating because there's no reason that it should take as long as it does.
One other frustrating part is when we have everything sent over to them, everything's ready, they don't calculate it right. They send us an offer that's not correct. So now we got to go back and say no after waiting several weeks for this, or they may argue against it too. But again, them trying to suddenly rush when we put the pressure on for them to do it is leading to some incorrect calculations on some of these resolutions.
Yeah, that part's tough because we go back to them and say the calculation's wrong, and then they have to go back to a supervisor and ask that supervisor. It has to go back through this chain of people, at least that's my understanding, in order to get a change in documents or get these calculations confirmed before it gets kicked back to us. And fingers crossed it comes back right, or we're back to the drawing board and we're back arguing again about it. So I think the main crux of 2025 that we've been seeing is just lots of delays, lots of turnover in employee retention, and lots of issues getting appointments at dealerships, again, due to, I believe, turnover that they're having there, a lack of rentals, and things of that nature. And I just want to sort of wrap this up with 3 honorable mention cars that I was actually surprised were not on our top 5 list, with cases that I feel like I see all the time, which are the Cadillac Escalade, the Jeep Wagoneer, and the VW Atlas. Those, to me, we've seen those a bunch. I'm shocked that they didn't make it into that top 5. And I feel like they have all the same issues that we talked about before, especially the Escalades with these catastrophic engine failures that they've been having. We've been seeing them just more and more frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Atlas can be another tough one when we were talking about purchase prices, because it is a more expensive vehicle. VWs tend to be more expensive than the Jeeps and the GMs, but they just have a ton of electrical transmission issues. So that can be a tough one.
Yeah. And the same for the Wagoneer. It's a $100,000 car. It's wild. And what is it for? It's a family car. It's Jeep's, answer to the Escalade and to the Suburban and Yukon. And same sort of thing, engine failures, being out of service for months, lots of really frustrated consumers when it comes to that vehicle. And the same thing with the Escalade. That's even more expensive than the Wagoneer. And when this recall came out for the catastrophic engine failures, oh my goodness. I mean, I feel like our phones went on fire with people calling in about having this issue in the vehicle. And again, really high purchase prices, and the offers and all that just sometimes just don't match. So I wish we had better news and information to report for 2025. But unfortunately, we're just seeing this really common thread, like we said, of delays, engine issues, transmission issues, and Bluetooth connectivity issues, just sort of across the board. But that's why we're here, right? That's what we do for a living. We're here to get the most that we can out of your claim for you. We have our intake line that you're able to call in to get a free consultation if you have any questions or wonder if you have a lemon, at 833-4CAR-LAW. The BBB website and your state's attorney general websites are also good resources for you to use should you suspect that you have a lemon or want to be prepared in case you just bought a new vehicle and are worried that you might have issues. You've got lots of resources that you can use to be ready for that. And with that, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Lemon Law Unpeeled is for informative purposes only. It is not to take the place of legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship between the viewers and Robeson Lemon Law Group. Individual results also may vary as outcomes are determined on a case-by-case basis.